let's consider yung Marvel movies, the whole Marvel cinematic universe. The Marvel Cinematic Universe has been one of the most followed and one of the most popular series of films about essentially warriors and heroes turned warriors to defend the whole reality against an overwhelming force, which is Thanos and his crew. Because it's like death and nature. Thanos wants to erase half of the universe's life, so it's balanced, like nature itself. While nature provides, gives birth, nature also destroys if not treated accordingly, if not respected accordingly. Now, there's a lot going on with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. There's, of course, each individual stories, and then in the end, there's like the whole Avengers. They tie them all up and they unite all these stories into one. How do you put it? One collected and one interconnected movie. That is the Avengers, like Endgame, Civil War. It's pretty interesting. It's in terms of writing and constructing the thing, and the imagination and the work that went on it. It's a really, really good testament of the human imagination, because creativity and of course storytelling and everything, movie making. It's one of I think one of the greatest blockbuster hits that have come into our cinemas. But one thing I want to point out is is the adulation, and of course the kind of sort of worship to the characters that came along, the fandom, like hardcore fandom that came along with this cinematic universe thing. Because some of the characters, we know they're fictional. They're written by, of course, our fellow humans, but the level of reverence, the characters had a life of themselves in a sense, worshipped by people, like the fans. There are like altars of action figures, like they are collected, and they're collected and put into glass cases with lights, and they're shown to, of course, the most popular distribution networks like Facebook, social media, Twitter, and of course there's conversation revolving around them. There's songs made about them, kind of like how hymns are made for the olden gods, and essentially they've just become like in the Greek mythology. They're just a modernized version of it. But in this in this whole shebang of of this whole phenomenon involving the Marvel Cinematic Universe, its characters, the Avengers especially. What we wanted to, so one of the highlights of the whole thing was the battles, of course. The battles, they are heroes at first. At first, they are heroes. They serve themselves, like they serve their own, purpose to be, to impress themselves and impress others, like with their abilities. But in the end, they became warriors. Like they serve more than just their own personal, personal needs, their own personal interests. They especially Iron Man, one of the central characters in the whole Avengers franchise, like from Tony Stark to the Iron Man, who, spoiler alert, who had to fight, decided to fight, so the everyone else can be saved, not just his daughter. So of course the battle involved being a warrior, not just Iron Man, but everyone else. They've some of the scenes there, like Thor being fat and just lost his grip. He was supposed to be king of Asgard, and he just let go and just let go and drank and just had drowned himself in alcohol, and that's not being a king. And there's some like missteps that happened to some of the characters that of course we knew in some sense that they're gonna recover, because it's a film. It's the ending has already been determined. But on one level of analysis, like it's when you see that's not, when you see Thor at the bottom, you're not inspired. You're not sensing the kingly energy, the warrior energy, unless there's something that initiates him, that transforms him. There's some circumstances that pushes him to fulfill and remember who he is, just like Simba in The Lion King. So they've decided to become warriors, defend the universe against Thanos, who wants death and balance, and wants to rule everything. But he serves not just himself. It's not because Thanos just wants it by himself. No, he serves death, essentially. It's not well established there, but it's just like a bit. Well, just established a bit. But in the comics, if you read the comics, the reason why Thanos just went into that spree of collecting all the Infinity Stones, and that's why he wanted all that power and snap his fingers and eliminate half the life on the universe, is because Lady Death told him that he forgot his mission. Because Thanos is like basically in love with Lady Death. Death is personified as this. It's a woman with Death is like that, personified as a woman, and Thanos is enamored by her, and Thanos wanted to serve her and wanted to love him back because he loves Death. Death doesn't want to love him back, so he wanted to impress Death, impress like a womanly, the spirit and the personification of death and destruction. He went into that, so he said, "I'll show you my devotion." So that is sort of a backstory of Thanos, and then that's where the whole thing began. And that's what prompted the whole Infinity War thing with all the Infinity Stones and all those powerful, stories that moved a generation. Now the fighting, I wanted to I wanted to focus on, just forget everything else, but one of the things that I guess is a focal point of all these stories is about the battles and being a warrior. And yeah, people like that. Like we've had discussions online in social media and blogs and everything about how the fight scenes were built, and the behind the scenes, and how it's choreographed and everything. Like people are, especially the ones with all that, when in the Infinity War where all the portals were opened and all the people from Wakanda united and all of that, when the cavalry came, it's like the Lord of the Rings, like when there's a part there that there's a point where they're about to be overwhelmed, and then the cavalry came, and then there's just this this other, like, the cavalry came. There's hope, and the tide of battle changed. The tables have turned. Now, this might look simple, but it's very powerful. Like if you watch it, like fighting, it's not. From the top, I guess, from the let's look at the shallow level first. Let's consider it. If you watch it watching people fight, even though it's PG-13 and above, so it's not too bloody and all of that, but watching groups of people, individual people in conflict, it's a powerful image. Like it's like I don't know how you watch it, but we're drawn to it. We when we watch films and movies like that, we tend to, like, some people, like me, put yourself into that scene. Like if there's a battle and you want to identify with the protagonists and the heroes, then you put yourself into their shoes, like imaginatively, and then you're the one who's swinging the sword. And of course, in the movies, it's like that. Also, when you watch like fighting, prize fighting, boxing, MMA, there's that. There's this spirit. There's this part of yourself that's being touched by it. Kind of like when you watch a really emotional scene, like there's some crying, you're being touched, your emotional side is being touched. But when you see fighting, and it's vicious and it's raw and it's like it touches some, especially if you're a guy, there's this side of you that's just getting ignited. A primal part of yourself being ignited by such imagery. And that is, we may call that warrior spirit, latent or sleeping or dormant, or just, yeah, that warrior spirit usually is just on a normal day. Like, if we go back into the practical world, when you wake up, you're not really into that mode. Some people are, especially if they train hard. They train to be warrior soldiers, some protectors of some Shaolin monks. Like that is one of the disciplines that nurtures the warrior spirit within. But for normal, quote unquote, civilians like us, it's not really that utilized, although there's a really great importance about it, because it's one of the fundamental energies of the male psyche or male personality. There is a warrior, there is a warrior element in all of us, guys. And if we don't tap into that, then in times when it's needed, when pushing back against a force is needed, if we don't know how to tap into the warrior energy, then we will be like a punching bag. We will become a doormat. Not just physically. We get bullied like that, get punched. We get, a victim of someone expressing their force. Maybe they're bigger than us, or he or she is a leader of a gang or a group and decides to pick on you. If you don't know how to tap into that warrior energy, the one that's being touched by aggression, then you can't hold your ground. You can't fight back. Instead of getting that urge to protect yourself and be headstrong and bite back, you cower, you go into you instead of activating that circuitry, that spirit, then the other thing happens. The prey instinct appears, because you don't know how. You don't know how to tap it. And it can happen to you again and again and again and again. It can happen to us, because that's just how life is. It's not just about bullying. It can also be emotional abuse, right? Even just verbal abuse, or some at work, verbal bullying, verbal, some mean people are meaner because they know that when they impose their force, impose their will on someone that knows can't fight back, then they just keep on doing it. They keep on steamrolling that other person because it gives them the feeling of infantile power. But on the other hand, if we know how to tap into that warrior, into that warrior spirit within us that's been there since the beginning, since we were a kid, then we know how to stand our ground. We know how to say no. We know how to draw the line in the sand. We can establish borders, like, borders that our personal space, our personal emotional space, our personal intelligence space, that when someone crosses the line, we know how to push back, we know how to handle it. Because if not, I mentioned that there's a possibility that you can just block, and you can just freeze. The other end of it is that if it's uncontrolled, if it's not harnessed correctly, it can explode. Like, it can explode violently, can lash out. We have a phrase in Filipino, nagdidilim yung paningin. There's a lot of that. When I was a kid, I wasn't able to understand that. Nagdilim ang paningin. Okay? And it's usually when it appears, it's mentioned in the news, it's related to some sort of violence, like really, really heinous crime, violence, like killed his kid, killed his kids, killed his neighbor, killed his spouse, something like that. So there's this urge that suddenly, there's this like energy that suddenly overcame him or her, and just literally nagdilim ng paningin is my eyesight went dark. It got dark. That's it. So the person gets overwhelmed by the instinct to fight back, instinct of aggression, and that happens. Ultra violence happens. It's like that. It's not just killing. Sometimes it goes even further. It's murder to the levels you won't be able to imagine, like, chopping them up. And yeah, it's nasty. It's a nasty world. And when they recover from that, after all that takeover by the instinct, and they came back into the real world, it's like they don't know what to do. It's not they don't remember even what they did, or even if they remember, it's like they're doing it automatically. Like, again, some spirit has taken over them. That is the warrior spirit, that instinct, that unregulated, unharnessed, unutilized, untrained warrior spirit within. And that kind of power, right? That kind of power, there's power in that. That's both dangerous and at the same time it's useful when the circumstances are right. So yeah, so the question now is, like, people, when people see that kind of things happen, it's the two forms. One is like being a doormat, a punching bag, because it's not trained. The other one is that if it's super, like, it's like a volcano, untethered, it's like unchained animal. It tends to make other people scared. Like, if you show uncontrolled warrior instincts, it's scary. It's scary, and because it's conflict. It's that the warrior spirit, because of its headstrong nature, because it's that's never quit, no pain no gain, something like that, that kind of spirit, like no quitting, just soldiering on. That phrase, that means like your convictions, you will step forward no matter what. But taken into extreme levels, if you don't tone it down, at work, at home, at school, wherever you are, it can cause problems. Okay. So we got to be aware of it, because its usefulness will be overshadowed by its pitfalls. It's like fire. It's like essentially fire, rage. Fire, you harness it correctly, you can do a lot of things with it. Essentially, the world, you can create a world where fire is contained properly. And yeah, I think that's one thing we can remember, so we can tap into the warrior spirit inside us, because it will help us again. Fire will help us deter unwanted creatures, unwanted energies that cross our boundaries. It's like you're holding a torch, and then there's a pack of wolves, and then you can just swing your torch around, and the wolves will not get into your camp. It's important. That is the kind of thing we need to remember in order to tap and use and be in touch with our warrior spirit properly in our day-to-day lives. It's just like it's sort of related, but there's one I forget if it's Zen. I think it's a Zen Buddhist saying that you need to tame your bull with a stick, so it doesn't graze into other people's meadows. The bull is Taurus. It's one if you go back to the texts, the bull is often a symbol of manliness. It's a symbol of aggression and power. Bullish aggression. It's like the one in the New York Stock Exchange. There's a bull there, right? It's a symbol. If in the world of stocks, if in the finance, if they say a company or an organization is bullish, then its stocks are aggression, and it's gaining. Bull also is like if we go to Spain, like bullfighting, it's not just like it's not just like some people wanted to see bulls die, but the original, if you go into symbolic terms with it, it's actually the human, the guy, the bullfighter, dressed in elegantly, fighting a beast with sword, taming him so he can prevail. He dances. It's actually a dance. It's actually like a ceremony. Like he dances with that. He tames. He makes the bull go where he wants it with the red cloth, so you can see. And that's there's some satisfaction after the dance, that there's the final blow, there's the sword, and then the bullfighter will just essentially poke him with swords until the bull dies, and then the people stand up and praise him and claps. It's that. He's a warrior that has conquered his bullish and animalistic nature. And yeah, there's power. Again, there's power in that. We should not forget that one of the most powerful spirits and one of the most powerful forms of manliness inside us is the warrior. And we need to learn how to discipline ourselves in order to wrangle and wrestle with this sort of, bullish and, sort of, hard-headed energy, but powerful within us. So discipline is one element, and the next one is clarity, mental clarity. Well, they're related, of course. I think I mixed them up, but it's one of the characteristics of a good warrior. A good warrior has clarity of mind because they're put into positions of life and death. And when you're in that position, when you're in the ring with the bull, and when you're in the ring with an opponent, if you're an MMA fighter, right, then you gotta make decisions, clear decisions. You can't go like, you can't just make random decisions. You lose the fight. Yeah. You will lose the fight. You will lose the fight with the bull. The bull will hit you with his horns and stomp over you with his hooves. And no matter how elegantly you are dressed, you will be killed. Right. So that's one. Mental clarity. It is believed that good warriors, being a warrior is second nature to them. Especially, I think, for the samurai. I can't remember if it's from the Legend of Five Rings, like from Miyamoto Musashi's book. Musashi is a master swordsman. I highly recommend reading his book, Legend of Five Rings. He talks about the being a second. His book basically talks about how to be a master swordsman, and one of the fundamental teachings there is that it has to be second nature to you. Like if you're a swordsman, then yeah, it's second nature. There's like instinct. It's an instinct built in. It's like when it's like singers. It's like you if you can talk while singing and you can sing while you talk, then you'll be a good singer. Something like that. It has to be second nature to you. Being a warrior should be second nature to you, and that can be achieved through discipline, mental discipline, physical discipline. It's being acquainted with limitations of your physical form, limitations in your spiritual capacities, limitations that you gotta wake up to the fact that your time is limited. You gotta be acquainted with death, that death is with you, because I guess that is with you everywhere you go. It's that kind of mental discipline, so that when something happens, you can react properly. You can react, make decisions, make good decisions with a clear mind, and win. You know, there's also this concept of saki. It's like it's the urge. It's the not really the urge, but the intention to cut, and it's bloodthirst. But that, when faced with an opponent, your goal is to cut your opponent, nothing else. Your goal is to cut. There's no holding back. If you hold back on that, if you have doubts in your mind when you clash swords, and your opponent's will, like if you have doubts in your head, like you there's this, I guess, some sort of emotion attached to it, like I guess pity or something like that, then you're giving your opponent a chance to beat you, because you gotta be ruthless like that. It's part of touching the warrior spirit, but not so ruthless that your actions are uncontrolled. They must always be controlled. They're not, they're not done for the sake of drama and spectacle or something like that. Once the job is done, it's done. It's done properly. You get the thing done. You take your time. You know your technology. You know your weapon. You know your techniques, and that's how you do it again and again and again and again and again until it becomes second nature to you. That is the mindset of the warrior. Listening to it, it may sound like a lot, and it is a lot, like to be a really, really good warrior. It has its benefits. Again, I've already mentioned it, what benefits you can get. Whatever benefit you can get from tapping into the warrior spirit, only you can know it personally for yourself. But what I'm sure of is it can benefit you from physically, by training yourself, your body, strengthening your body and be a warrior, and also like emotionally and spiritually, like Jesus and Gautama Buddha are spiritual warriors. They were tempted by the devil with riches and the physical world and kingdoms and gold and sexy women and all of those, but they said no. That's their devotion to their spiritual goals and spiritual excuse me, and their spiritual, the spiritual values. They stick to that. They held their ground and they banished the evil away. So yeah, you can be a warrior in mind, body, and spirit. And yeah, you need to learn how to tap into it. But of course, again, no benefit has a cost. You've heard about the benefits of tapping into the warrior spirit. But if you tap too much into that, again, there are consequences. So you also need to learn how to dial it down, because power, of course, once you get a taste of the power associated with the warrior spirit, if you're not careful about it, you might get addicted to it, just like anything else, sugar, beer, whatever, alcohol, something that elevates your spirit into another level. Because one of the things that constitute discipline and mental discipline and that mental clarity is the ability to be detached into things and other people. And if if that's your blind spot, it can cause problems. Yes, you're a great warrior, let's say. If you're an office worker, get in touch with your warrior spirit. You always make the sale. You climb the corporate hierarchy. You get into positions of power where you can make your decisions. You get into positions where you get to call the shots. But that's like work, and that's the office. If you go home, you need to learn how to get detached from that warrior spirit, and it can be a problem for some people, because being a good warrior is being a warrior is serving something bigger than yourself. Might be your company. It's like the Japanese work culture, like being a samurai, and being loyal to your company, and to the point of overworking to death. That's the warrior spirit in play. It's the unregulated, it's the uncontrolled warrior spirit into play. And of course, it can bring misery, not just for you, because you'll die. So what's the point, right? You work and you get into the company's upper echelons, and then you die, and then also your family. If you work too much, then you're not in touch with your family, with your wife, with your kid, with your parents, with your friends outside work. And if you dial down the warrior spirit a bit, isn't that the reason why you're being a hard worker in the first place? So you'll be able to spend more comfortable time with them, with your family, with your kid, quality time, with your friends. And if you get drowned and you get overwhelmed by by being a warrior, then you lose all of those, because you trade mental clarity with without the emotional attachments. That's some also in the book. There's that's also the reason why some soldiers' wives, some soldiers are just like that. They're trained to live as if they're already dead, and so they can't they can't form relationships with women or other people, essentially, that involves some investment of emotion, like long term, and they miss out on the richness of that aspect of life. And another thing is that once you become a soldier, of course, it's an initiatory position. It's a warrior class. It's a class of its own. It has its own rituals and its own traditions and all of that. Once you become a soldier, like you get through phases. Once you become a full-fledged soldier, and at some point you need to be discharged. Some soldiers don't know how to live the life of a civilian anymore, because all the time they're like, it's their second nature to be a soldier. But they can just like go back and get discharged and just live and just say hello, hi. No, it's in their mind. It's their second nature to fight. So some of them have troubles going back into our, like, just enjoying the simple things, enjoying movies without like thinking about fighting and all of that. So they get some sort of, their spirit get some sort of tunnel vision that everything is related to fighting, everything is related to aggression, everything is related to being a warrior. So they gotta do something about that, like some sort of rehabilitation and going back into the society and civil society without, and detach themselves in being a soldier. Because some soldiers, some warriors have troubles with that they just move away. They just go into the mountains and just live a solitary life, hunting, something like that. Because they can't cope. They can't live like without, they can't go back into their normal state of mind. Well, not really normal, quote unquote, but the not warrior state of mind. So you need to be careful about it, tapping into the warrior spirit within us. Because, it's again one of the fundamental forms of masculine energy that lives inside every person, male or female, of course. And we need to remember that it's inside of us, it's inside our ancestors, it's inside the people who gave birth into us, into this world. It's one of the reasons why we're here, and we need to learn. If you haven't learned it yet, you should start. It's not too late. Okay, if you're young, the younger the better. You get more time to acquaint yourself with the warrior within. Just remember that it takes discipline, again, mental clarity, and emotional detachment when making decisions. That's the I think, quote unquote formula, and then make it second nature. But then again, there's dangers, there's pitfalls, so be aware of those. And once you have it, you can draw great power from the warrior within. You can transcend some states, some mental states like pain and like hardships. It can help you go through a lot of hardships that come along your way, by tapping into the warrior spirit. Solve problems strategically with a clear mind. Who doesn't want that, right? It's how you solve problems. Sometimes you don't solve it head on, you can work around it, or you can use diplomacy, or you can use some tactical maneuvering. That's those are the benefits that the warrior, tapping into the warrior spirit within, can give you. So I hope you've in your journey, I hope that you'll be able to harness the fire within and use it to your own advantage, and use it to change the world around you. And with that warrior, make that by harnessing and tapping into the warrior spirit, that you become a force of good, and you share this knowledge. Once you think you get a grip on things, you can handle things, properly, you share this knowledge to people you love, people you care about, who you think can also benefit from tapping into the warrior spirit. Till next time, thanks for listening.